So
Cool. Let's get cracking.
sure, definitely.
Right. So guys, welcome. I'm DJ. You can just see me there in the mirror. And this is me. It's my daughter, my camera woman, camera girl. So today, well, what we've been doing is actually, since we've been on lockdown, me and I have been doing countless tutorials. And we've had a few days off just to relax and get back into it. And we're really honored to be here with Shark Fin Scissors today. And I'm going to do a quick tutorial, or we'll see how long it lasts. What I'd like to do is I'd like to do a combination haircut. And as you can see my sectioning, what I've done is actually isolated the crown area on both sides. I've worked with the central parting down the center. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a triangular layer, and then I'm going to do a round layer. So I'm actually going to end up with like a shag haircut when we're finished. But I'm going to do two tutorials so that you can get the most out of it. So I'm going to hand you off to me, and then I'm going to get cutting. All right. Cool.
Perfect.
Let's give her a spray now. So as you can see, I've sectioned the crown away, and everything I do when it comes to cutting hair, it's all to do with head shape. So what I've done is I've sectioned down the center all the way through, and then I've sectioned from the middle of the crown down to this top part of that round of the head, which is known as the mastoid. And then what I've done is I've worked from this round, which is the occipital, all the way down to the lower part of that mastoid, which actually is your jawline all the way through. So everything I do works with head shape. Again, if you're going to be a good architect, you've got to know the landscape that you're working on. So what I'd like to do first, guys, is I'd like to take the weight out of this part of the haircut and leave it heavier towards the front. And once I've done that, I want to take the weight out of this part of the haircut and let it get heavier towards the back. So when those two shapes meet, we'll have a corner through this area. It's called a diamond-shaped haircut. And so what we'll end up with, the finished result, we'll probably have this like nice little shaggy kind of shape through the front. So let's get started.
Yay.
How are we doing? We okay?
Any questions?
No, we're good over here. I'm keeping my eye on the Q&A section. People were just more interested, it seems right now, in what haircut you were going to be doing, and what I heard was the shag. So we're off and running, right?
Yeah, we're going to work on first somewhat like a layered bob or a lob, and then we'll turn that into a shag. So we're going to do like a 2-for-1 kind of situation here.
What are we doing now?
What we like to do is like to try and get the most out of the class and obviously the mannequin head that we're using. So what I've done is I've sectioned away this underneath area. I'm not going to start the haircut with the length. I'm actually going to start the haircut with the layers. So I'm going to remove the weight first, and then I work to the length afterwards. So here's the deal. When you cut hair in your hands, there's two places to hold the hair. And cut the hair, excuse me. You can cut it on the inside, or you can cut it on the outside. And they're two different things. So if I cut this on the inside, basically what's going to happen is, if you look at the inside of my fingers, it's much flatter than what the outside is. This is more curved, and this is a flatter surface. So whatever I do when I cut this, I'm going to cut it flat. So that means there's going to be shorter parts and longer parts. That's going to create a concave layer, right? What I'd like to achieve is I'd like to achieve a layer that's convex. It follows that curvature of the head shape. See, when it comes to cutting hair, guys, it's a distribution of weight. And there's two sides to weight. There's bigger and there's skinnier, right? So if I want that layer that's more voluminous and has more bounce to it, I'm going to cut a more of a convex layer. If I cut concave, then it's not going to have that movement. It's a skinnier layer. So I'm going to go with that convex. So I'm not going to cut this on the inside of my fingers. I'm going to cut it on the outside of my fingers because they're curved and I can follow the head shape.
Any questions?
So let's get started. First section, right down the middle, is about the thickness of one of the fingers that you're going to hold the hair with. Right? You're the one cutting the haircut. It's you that's controlling it. So you should be taking sections that work with the size of your fingers. Now, if it's too big of a section, it means that you'll over-direct the hair unnecessarily into a place you don't need to. So you want to work with a smaller scale. Now, there's two sides I can stand. I can stand here on this side and work uphill, or I can stand where you are and I can work downhill. If I work downhill, it means that my scissor is going to come over this way, right? So it means I'm going to cut this shorter and I'm going to leave that longer. That's concave. Remember, I want convex. I want it to be the same length all the way through. And that's because I'm stood upright, and that's how my arm moves. It's very important to understand how your body works so that you can use it to help you cut the haircut. So I'm going to stand with my fingertips pointed down, because now I can actually start at the bottom and I can control the layer that I cut. All right, let's do that. So my feet are parallel to what I'm working on, all right? So whatever I do with this right foot, guys, is going to determine where I pull the hair to. So I want to send the hair straight out from the head, which is to this back wall. So I'm going to stand parallel to my work. Now, I'm using an extra long comb today, so I'm going to work it about that kind of length. This is my good friend, Sir Anthony Edge. It's his orange comb. I thought it would be appropriate to use it today. I think you guys are going to have some classes with him this week as well. Can they see
We are
that?
on Thursday, yes.
Oh, awesome, on Thursday. So that's my first section. And what I've done is I've just followed the head shape from here to here. So I've created a convex layer, although known as 90 degrees. So now I take my second section. See, now I have to think about something else. I know what this haircut looks like this way, but now I want to know what's going to happen this way, horizontally in the haircut. How heavy do I want it to get towards the front? I've got options. If I bring everything into number one, right, that's a stationary guideline, that's maximum over direction. That means the weight's going to drop off super heavy. She's going to need to speak to the manager when it's finished. If I over direct to the previous section, then it's definitely going to get heavier towards the front. But if you notice, the hairline stops there and it jumps up and goes around the ear. So we've got less hair in the front than we do in the back. So I need to keep my over direction inside of that area from center to the natural corner of where the hairline is. So what I'm going to do, it's very simple. I'm going to send every single section straight back to this wall that's actually behind the mannequin. So it's not to the center, it's to the wall behind.
Me, can you go to the left a little bit and let us see directly the back of the head?
Come over here. So now you can see my over direction straight back. Perfect. So now I take my next section. Remember, I'm not cutting any of that nape area. I'm just doing the crown area. It's isolated, just like we are. I get rid of number one, and I take number two, and I send that straight back. And I send three straight back with it. So if you think about what's happening is that wall behind the mannequin is just like the ceiling. And I'm just lifting everything up to the ceiling. So the scissor or the shear I'm using today is the shark fin Monarch scissor, courtesy of my friend Willie. Again, get rid of my previous, just using that, and I'm sending them straight back. And what I'm not doing, guys, is I'm not combing the guide. I'm combing what I'm about to cut so that I don't actually get shorter. If you comb the guide, you move off base, and that's how you make mistakes. So every part of this section is being elevated to 90 degrees, and it's being sent straight back. So I've now actually naturally reached that natural round of the head. So that's the corner of the hairline right there. So from this point forward, come over here, me. From this point forward, that's the side. So I can continue to take sections But that's going to be a waste of time because now I know that this section right here is my guide and it's stationary because I'm sending the hair straight back. So I can condense this because I have a stationary guideline. When you're traveling, you can't condense, obviously, right? So that's my first side done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a quick cross check. Obviously, I pulled the hair straight back, so I need to check my over direction. Now, one of the big mistakes that people make is they cross-check the haircut wrong. Based on what I did, most people are just going to take this hair and pull it straight back. But if you can see, that line's all right, but it's not the cleanest line. So if I come in there and I cross-cut, I'm just going to cut a hole in the haircut. But if I elevate to where it was cut to the right spot, then that line is going to look so much better. Can you guys see that? So much better because it's in the right place. If you don't cross-check in the right place, you're not going to like what you see. That's a big thing in haircutting. So now let's move to this segment. Now, what generally happens, you're probably used to this, is to switch positions when you work on the other side of the head. Well, I'm going to stay in the same spot because, again, I want to work up the head instead of down. I want full control. So now I'm going to use this as a guide from my previous side, and I'm going to work into this opposite side. So if you're just joining us, we're working on two different haircuts that are going to combine. I'm working on a triangular convex layer right now. That means I'm pulling the hair backwards, and I'm cutting a layer that follows the vertical contour of the head shape. After that, we're going to work a round concave layer, and we're going to turn this haircut into a shag.
DJ, have you recently done this same technique but done square layers or something similar?
I've done this, and I did the square layer version of it too. Yeah, the square layer, all it does is it keeps a more even distribution of weight, whereas this is going to leave a corner of weight right where it's the weakest, right around this area. Whereas square just does this, and round just does that. I'm actually going to do both together. So same thing, I just get rid of my previous section, and I use what I need. I didn't say that right. I have just my previous section with me. And there's my guide. So body positioning again, if you notice when I'm cutting this, it's in between my shoulders, my cutting mark. I'm not stood over by the ear and stretching myself and not knowing where I'm sending the hair to and not knowing what I'm cutting. I'm right there, so I know exactly what's going on. A lot of hair cutting is common sense. You just have to know what your body does to control it. So same thing all the way through. Working vertical sections that are up and down. That's how you're going to remove weight.
Me, can we get you back where you were earlier for that directly? Yes, thank you.
So again, it's very difficult when you're not using a mirror. What the view you have right now, guys, that's where my mirror would be. So I can see exactly where each section is being directed to. Right now in this room, I have no mirror other than the one over there. So I'm having to use my feet. So look at my feet, me. So it's whatever I do with this right foot, that's going to determine where I pull the hair to, right? See, this is the movement that we do. So if I push this right foot backwards, I'm now going to pull the hair over here. If I push the right foot forwards, I'm not going to use enough over direction. So remember, whatever you do with your feet will control the haircut because your arms are attached to your body and your body is always governed by what your feet are doing. So again, I've reached the round of the head and now I'm condensing the rest of these sections to that stationary guideline. Bingo. We'll have a cross check on this and then we can take this into the underneath. So cross checking is to check the opposite dimension. In this case, it's to check my movement. My finger angle, I know what that looked like. and I over-directed the hair straight back, and I have the wall that's behind the mannequin. You guys see that? So chances are your haircut is better than you think it is. You're probably just not looking at it in the right spot. So now when I look at my layers, I can see them descending from back to front. So that's what's known as triangular within haircutting. So now what we've got to do is we've got to take this and connect this to it. So what I'm going to do is just section that away again. We'll take the clips out of the underneath now. Now, it's going to change a little bit now because of what I'm trying to do. Now, if I stay in the same position, what it means is I'm going to work from my outline into the inside. So probably going to cut my length too short, and then where I connect to this layer right here, I'm going to create a corner, either that way or that way. Not good either way. I want a nice fluid flow of weight out to the length that she already has. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to actually turn her around this way so that now my fingertips point upwards, not downwards. So I'm going to bring her down a little bit. Take vertical section, just like before. It's the same principles. Let's try and get that out of the way a bit. I put the hair in the comb. My palm doesn't face the head. If the palm faces the head, that pushes me forward and I'm not in control. My palm actually faces me, guys, and I put the hair in between these two fingers, right? And all I do is I move the hair out towards the guide, which is at the occipital, and I can connect down to the length. And so what I'm doing is I'm protecting all of this mannequin's existing length. So this is for that client. It's like, I want a slight change, but I don't want to lose my length. And the great thing about working triangular layers is it doesn't open the face. It doesn't expose anything on the face. So if somebody's got a wider, rounder face, if they've got more than one chin like myself, round is probably not the best idea, because we always look at this view, right? But it's that view that's really important. See, if I push back too much, then I expose all of this, whereas triangle is going to close that in. It's like opening the curtains versus closing the curtains. And I'm going to continue exactly the same as what I did the crown area. I'm just over directing the hair straight back. I've reached the natural round of the head, so that is now a stationary guideline. And I'm just going to take the rest of this and condense it and bring it back again to that wall right behind the mannequin, right where the piano.
Also have a mirror.
So now I've got a nice flow from back to front.
DJ,
So now
I have a couple questions. Do you define the outline first or after cutting the middle?
with a great question. Do I define the outline first or after cutting the middle? In this particular case, guys, I wanted to maintain this entire mannequin's length. So that's just like your client coming in and saying, just, I want to keep my length. So I didn't establish a length because of that. Now, if she had Kardashian length hair and she wanted a change, then I'd possibly come in there first and I could establish a length. But I don't need to. If I establish a length, it tends to become stronger and bolder. If I just layer it, the outline becomes softer. It's more bouncier. Great question. So I'm working on this other side now. And if you notice, I didn't switch positions. I'm going to stay with my fingertips pointed up so I can cut the way out of the haircut and towards my outline. Come and look at these sections, mate. So straight up, straight down. And again, same thing. Straight back. Fingertips pointed up, working towards the knuckles. Now, some people tell me that this is really awkward, but it's not, because this is the thing you do all day long, but you're just going to do it here now. Right, there's no difference between me doing this and this. I'm still working from fingertips to knuckles. So again, it's all about you practicing this and understanding what the body does to control it. So I only need my previous section. I don't need all of that. If I use all of it, then I risk over-directing too much. If I over-direct too much, that's not a mistake. It means I'm getting longer. I can always cut more off. It's the shorter that you want to avoid. So I've reached the natural round of the head. I can now condense this and send all of that straight back. Again, nothing's going in towards the center. Everything is going straight back that way. Not this way, straight back towards you. So it's just like lifting everything straight up to the ceiling. So now that that's done, we can work the top. And I'll switch it back around, but you can see now I've kept my length and it's soft. See, what I want to avoid is putting a harsh line in there. If I do that, then I risk losing all of that vertical movement within the haircut, because it becomes all about the outline. That's a bob. I want this soft, sexy, bouncy layer. So let's turn it around again. I hope you guys are doing all right. We're having a bit of fun. We've not done this for a week, have we?
They're loving it. I know. I don't think you can see the comments, but you're doing great. The feedback's fantastic.
Excellent. So now let's move through into the top. So I'm going to continue what I did in the back and take this through into the front. Now there's two options. I could do this, work horizontal sections, use elevation, and continue that line by using finger rounding. Or I can use vertical sections and I can over direct back for it to get longer. Remember, pull away from what you want to keep. But if I do that, guys, this would be my guide. I've only got so much space that this can be brought back to that. So I'm only guaranteed a certain length. So I'm going to go with a different option so that I can actually preserve that length. One of the worst feelings, guys, is working through this way. And when you get to the apex, you're realizing that it's going to be too short. So doing it this way gives you a little bit more control over that. So we go back to where we left off in the crown. And there you can see, all I'm going to do is I'm going to continue that towards the front. So essentially I'm doing the same thing in the top and the front as I did in the back. Straight up to the ceiling. Short to long. Now I'll continue in the same manner, just like I did the back area. So my elevation now is up to the ceiling. Now, one of the issues here is being able to reach it. So what we do find is we find a lot of this. Now, the thing is, what we think we're doing is we think we're locking it. But if you think about this a little bit further, you're just as organic as the material that you're cutting. So it's really difficult for you to lock it. You need to be a machine in a factory using air compression and stuff like that. So what actually happens, guys, is you lose the tension. Now, in haircutting, tension is the most important thing. If you get that wrong, then the haircut's not going to be even or clean. It's not going to do what it's supposed to do. See, look, I didn't lock anything. See how wavy that is? So if I cut a line now, it's not clean. So that when after I've blow dried it, it looks lumpy. That means your tension's off. So one of the things you can change to make this easier for you, because if you can't reach it, then that's the struggle, right? Don't make it about the elbow. See, if I make it about the elbow, that's my limit. I can't go any higher than that. But if I drop the elbow, watch what can happen. The elbow's down here now. See, there was my limit before. Look, this goes way higher. All the way up, and I can cut both. So a little elevation hack for you there.
With sound effects,
With sound effects.
as always.
It's always better to do that than to have your client scoot forward in the chair so that you can reach it. But if you can't reach it, I understand that you got to do what you got to do sometimes. So I'm continuing, lifting straight up to the ceiling. Nothing's going into the center because it didn't do that in the back. So essentially, I'm doing the same thing in the front as I did in the back. So I've reached the natural round of the head, so I can condense this now. It's what I call hybrid haircutting, knowing when to be gas and when to be electric. Instead of sitting around wasting your time, you could be getting this done and you could be already into your blow dry. You can spend some time on recommending products or whatever it is so that you're not wasting the time that you have with them when we get back to cutting content. So you can see that nice triangle. I left it on the longer side. Obviously, this technique, you could put the bob in first and then do the same thing. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Same section in. I'm not going to switch sides because I don't want to work downhill. Look how my arm looks. So I'm actually going to cut that shorter and leave that longer. So it's very difficult for me to get that place. You've got to understand how the swing of your body works. So I will stand on the same exact side and I'll work from shorter to longer, not from longer to shorter. I comb the side of the section that I'm about to cut. So I'm always combing this side closest to me now because my guide is closest to you. So we did a bunch of tutorials over the last few weeks. You can find them on my Instagram, on IGTV. There's a whole bunch we did. Must have done about, what, 10 different things in just over a week. And they're all on there. Very essential haircuts and haircutting techniques. I believe knowledge destroys fear, so that's really what we're all about, is just really breaking down the whats and the whys and the hows and the when, and most importantly, the what if, you know.
Because the stuff you don't know is scary, but when you know it, there's no reason.
Exactly. You've got to do it until you know it. Do it until you can't do it wrong.
Do you always condense sections at the round of the head?
Yes, as soon as I get to the round of the head, everything else from the head shape is much flatter. So it becomes stationary. At this case, the parietal ridge is my guide. Just like the parietal ridge in the back is here, it's this round of the head. Once I got to here, I over-directed all of this back. So once I get to here, I elevate all of that straight up. And what that's doing for me is that's just taking care of, like, not wasting time on that. Come over here, me. So you can see, guys, I'm using the hair at the natural round of the head as the guide. And just doing the same exact thing like I did in the back. So if you think about the direction of movement within this haircut, it's been like this. See if you can get that, babe. So over direction straight back, and I've elevated straight up to the ceiling. And then I've cut this cutting angle, my finger angle is creating this all the way through. So right now, we've just got a very cool, longer triangular layered haircut. So this is for somebody that's got a rounder face. So you can close it in a little bit instead of opening it up and exposing everything. So now what I want to do is I want to combine. I want to do another haircut where I want to do the exact same thing here as what we've done here in the crown area. So I'm now going to work on a round shape. So Meet, come on over here. We're going to section this off.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did my first section, they were all angled this way because that's how I want the weight to flow. So when I move up from the hairline in the front, the first round of the head is the apex. That is just like the occipital in the back. It's the first round of the head. So I'm essentially going to do the same thing in the front as what I did in the back. So I'm going to take it from the apex to the mastoid, right behind the ear. Now, if you don't know where these things are, just put your comb on the head, and where it touches, that's that ridge. Find all these ridges and rounds to the head, because that's basically the map to your haircut. Sectioning that away. I'm going to do that on both sides. And this particular technique is so simple, it's so easy. You don't have to do what I just did and do the triangular parts of the haircut. This is essentially going to be a shag now, guys. So look back out of the way, I don't need any of that. What I need is this panel right here. So a shag generally, guys, is done like this. You work vertical diagonal back sections, you put in your length around the front, and then what you do is you pull everything into the previous and work through. It's a very difficult haircut to do. So what you find in nowadays, guys, is everyone's just pulling everything forward onto the front. But if I pull everything onto the front, it leaves everything the heaviest in the center back. That's not the most complimentary look to us. So the combination of shapes right now that I'm going to have is it's not going to leave the center back heavier. It's going to leave it where it's the weakest, which is right around the ear area. So a different way of doing it this way. See, instead of working these type of sections, I'm actually going to work horizontal sections. So right now, I'm going to set in that bang, that curtain bang or fringe, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to pull straight out from the head, from this, and I'm going to follow out here with my fingers, just like I did in the crown earlier. And I'm going to cut a line that follows that round of the head. So immediately I'm making it work to this particular head shape and bone structure. In this case, it's a mannequin, so it's foam structure. So let's have a look at where that falls. So that's going to be the shortest point of that front area. I think I want to go a bit shorter than that. I want to make this more of a shag shape instead of that kind of long concave layers. And that's really all a shag is, guys. It's just a shorter round layer. If I go shorter than this, then it turns into a mullet. All right, so that's where we're going to go, right off that cheekbone. And I'm going to take subsequent sections, and I'm going to use a stationary guideline now. So that means, come look at this way. I'm going to push everything into number one. So I'm using maximum elevation. So what that's going to do for me is it's going to create a concave layer. That means it's going to be shorter on the inside, longer toward the exterior, right? That's concave, whereas convex follows that shape. Concave is skinny, convex is big. Remember, there's two sides to weight. There's a skinny side to me, and there's a bigger side to me. And that happens in haircutting too. That's what makes haircutting a little simpler for me, is understanding that there's not that many options. So let's see, do we want to go shorter than that? Are they heavy bangs? I think they're too heavy. Let's go a bit short. Hope you guys are enjoying this. It's a rainy day here in San Diego.
As you can hear.
Not that we can go outside anyway, but
DJ, could you hit concave and convex again in the sense of fuller versus skinnier?
Yeah, definitely. Good one, that one, really. I think that's one of the biggest things is to understanding what these techniques do. Remember, guys, haircutting is the distribution of weight. So right now, you can see I'm elevating everything up into number one. This isn't over direction. Over direction is backwards and forwards. Right now, I'm lifting. Another word for an elevator, where I'm from in England, is a lift. So by me lifting and pushing everything into that first section, what it's doing is it's making this get heavier. So that's concave. It works against the curvature of the head shape, right? So that allows me to take the bulk out and leave the edges. Think liposuction. Get rid of the guts, leave everything else, right? Now convex is if I followed the head shape. Now that's going to be the fuller layer, right? Remember, there's two sides to weight. There's skinny and there's big. So whenever you're cutting hair, you've got a skinny layer, you've got a big layer. You've got a big graduation, you've got a skinny graduation. So everything is coming into number one. So if you think about it, number one is stationary. So I really don't need to be worried about how big these sections are. If I can see the guideline, I can just go for it. So I can just bring everything into one. So that's when you can get through haircuts a little quicker, is understanding when to condense and when not to. So now, let's have a look at that. So you can see that shaggy shape that's going to be around the front there. So let's do this side. So it's going to be the same thing. How's those camera angles?
Good.
Good.
Good. I'm going to move her back to the front here in a minute, or in a second, if that's yes.
Just to see the elevation, exactly. So
That's the best shot right there. Beautiful.
Now you're going to be able to see, again, everything being brought into that first section. So because it's a stationary guideline, guys, these sections can be a little bigger than normal. So I can make them wider, so I can get through it quicker. Again, use your time smartly and wisely. So whenever I can, I will condense, as long as I have control, as long as I can see the guideline. So I could probably do that in one now. So I've just done this in basically 3 sections, this front on this side. So you can see that elevation above 90 into that first section. That's what you would call a concave layer. And the line that I'm cutting, this line, if you notice it's shorter in the front, longer in the back, that's round. See, when it falls, it's going to fall shorter here and drop towards the back.
DJ.
Yes, sir.
I know how much you love this question, and I love hearing the answer and seeing it. So if they had a side part, how would you go about it?
Well, a side part on a round shape, what you'd have to do is you actually have to change the angle on one side than the other, because it has to work from the same length at the front. So let's say one side of the parting would have to be like this, right? Whereas the other side would have to be not as aggressive. Again, when it's side parting, you're going to have one side that's longer than the other, so that when they travel over the head, they land in the same spot. So great question, Willie.
It's just such an arm workout.
It is.
Holding it for so, like, I think I've got like really strong arms.
So let's connect this into the back. Let's finish this haircut off, this combination of triangular layers and round layers. So we've just created this band through the front, and that's where all that layering is around the face. And you can see it's a very shag-ish shape, all right? So now what I want to do is I just want to connect this to this, but not this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that length at the apex as a guide, and I'm actually going to take these sections. Can you get this angle? And I'm going to pivot off the apex like so.
Clock.
like a clock. You got it. I'm going clockwise, and then I'm going anti-clockwise.
Counterclock?
Counterclockwise, that's the word.
That's a great shot. Thank you.
So let's do this side. So again, I'm going to use this length at the apex that I've got, and I'm going to connect it to that. And I'm going to cut from short to long. I'm going to continue that angle. And then with each section, I'm just going to lift straight up to the ceiling, and it's going to do that, guys. So I'm going to take the weight out that way. So a lot of people would probably just immediately name this a modern shag. To me, it's just the same. It's a shag. It's just I'm doing it a different way. There's more than one way to do any haircut. See, now I go from short to long, and I meet the length at the back. And what that does is it creates this corner. So now I continue short to long, and I pivot around the head, straight up to the ceiling.
DJ,
So,
if
yes,
forgive me, I'm sorry.
no, you're good. Go for it.
If you said there's no one, there's multiple ways of doing the same haircut. How do you find a way that's what makes you choose the one you use? What do you take into consideration? If that does that make sense?
Yeah. So I mean, we learn in a very classic way, or I did. I learned the classics first. I'm from Vidal Sassoon, so I learned all the classic ways of doing, or fundamental ways of doing haircuts, but I also learned the intricacies of how those haircuts were controlled. So you have to realize that haircutting is three-dimensional. So I can cut hair with vertical sections, or I can cut hair with horizontal sections, and I can use a movement to control all the other things. So for me, it was experimentation. It was playing around with haircuts like this, for example. If you think about what I'm doing right now, guys, is I'm actually doing a graduated bob up at this part of the head shape. See, when I was talking earlier that the apex is the same as the occipital, it is. It's the exact same spot on the head. The hairline's identical, right? So if I do a graduated bob here, and then I pivot, right, and I pull back onto that, I get that shape. Now, if I do a graduated bob on this part, which is what I'm doing, I don't get a graduated bob, but the opposite to a triangular graduation is round concave layers. So that is how I found different ways of doing things, is just by experimenting. Remember, guys, whenever you cross-check your haircut, you see another line, don't you? So that means there's another way of doing it. Good question, Roy.
I'd like to take credit for these questions, but I can't.
That's good. Well, good question, whoever asked that one. So I will continue now to the other side of the head, and I'm going to stay in the same position because I want to work short to long. I don't want to work long down to short. It's not the right motion, and I'll probably leave that longer and take this shorter. So we're almost there. We're almost kind of gliding through now. Same thing, straight up to the ceiling, connecting from that apex into the crown. Let's try and stay clean for that.
Me, could you go back again when he takes that next section and shoot from right behind? Please.
Yes.
This way, right? This side.
Um,
Come over this side.
Both. The way you started in the back and then worked around as she did is great. Both ways is great.
So now you can see it's up to the ceiling, short to long, and I'm just pivoting. So I'm moving with each section. If not, then I'll start to over direct, and then it's going to get heavy towards the front. Anything wrong with that? No, but it's not what I'm after. So again, it's knowing what's going to happen. So the one thing I can advise you guys is to play with the what if. I've been a teacher pretty much my entire career, other than the 2.5 to 3 years I trained to become one. So that's almost 26 years. And the number one thing I've always been asked is, what if you did it this way? What if you stood over here and did it? What if you cut it with this side of your fingers versus the other? Well, I tried it, and that's how I figured all this stuff out. So one of the best things for you guys to do is to experiment. If you think about it, guys, experimenting is just a fancy word of the F up word. You know what I mean? You're just playing with it. Experimentation. So let's have a look at this. So you can see the shape, guys. Nice shaggy kind of shape all the way through.
The O bone was the O bone in the back. You were sectioning from there up, correct?
In the back, yes. So the first part of the haircut. Let's do a recap on what I did. Yeah. So the first haircut. Are you talking about the shag haircut, Willie?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. It was from the apex.
Yes. Okay.
My first thing to do was to section away that. That's like sectioning the occipital to that. It's doing the same exact thing.
I think that's what it's in reference to. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's what if you think about it, guys, this and this are the same spot. So with the shag part, all I did was put my layer in through here, and I lifted everything into that. And in the back, all I did was the same thing. I just pulled everything straight back. So we've got a really nice combination of triangular layers, which means gets heavier towards the front, and then round concave layers, which connect into it, which means heavier towards the back. And that gives me a much more balanced shape, if you see this, all through that. And now, obviously, it's not finished. It would have to be dried and then all the outline done and stuff. But one of the things that I will do before I dry it, Lee, come hold this a sec, is this front area. See, now that I've built the house, I can come through and I can start to decorate it. So I take these pieces and I just slice cut. And you can see the model of the scissor as well. And what I will do, guys, is I will post a picture of this on my Instagram so you can see the finished result after it's dried.
We'll put it on ours as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send you that. And that just opens up that front a little bit. And then we've got this nice, shaggy, very current, very on-trend haircut. So again, that's a combination, guys. We've got triangular layers in the back, round layers through the front. They connect, they create this corner, that peak of weight that falls in this area, right where that ear is. And yeah, that was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Was that good, Willie?
I thought it was amazing. I'm not going to lie, in a selfish way, I get to benefit from all of these things we're doing too, because I get to watch.
Yeah, that's good, man. You don't have to do all the work.
Well,
so
that
guys,
is true.
I used the shark fin
That is so true.
I got the shark fin monarch scissor. I use my Anthony Edge orange comb, which is